Hello, I am your storyteller Nightfall. Today I've prepared crime horror stories to help you fall asleep or just chill. Please consider liking the video and subscribing for more videos like this. Comment down below from where you watch and what time it is. Please use headphones for the best experience. Back to the video. Detective Elias Monroe had seen plenty of horrific crime scenes in his 17 years on the force, but nothing had ever felt quite like this. The house on Mercy Street stood like a mausoleum in the mist. Rotting white paint, boarded windows, and an iron gate that looked like it hadn't been opened in decades. The report was vague. A missing college student, last seen near this neighborhood, her phone's last ping from this very house. It had been abandoned for years. Supposedly. Monroe approached the door, flashlight in one hand, revolver in the other. It creaked open before he even touched it. Cold air hit him, thick with mildew and something metallic. He stepped inside. The floorboards groaned under his boots, plastic sheets hung like ghostly veils in the hallway. Every step into the house made it feel less like a search and more like a descent. Then he heard the knock, not from the door, from below. 3 slow, deliberate knocks. Knock, knock, knock. There shouldn't have been a basement. The house blueprints said nothing of the kind. But there it was, a metal ring, rusted and half buried under the hallway rug. A trap door. Someone had gone to great lengths to hide it. He opened it. The smell hit him like a wall. Copper, rot, and despair. He descended the stairs. The basement was not just a basement, it was deep. Too deep for any normal home. The stairs led down 3 flights, all concrete, until he reached a hallway lined with steel doors. Each door had a nameplate. Some names he recognized, missing persons, cold cases from as far back as the 90s. Others were unfamiliar. Each room was a cell, each cell a time capsule of a life interrupted. Photos taped to walls, articles of clothing pinned like exhibits, scratched messages, and cameras. Dozens of them, old camcorders and newer digital ones, mounted in every room, all still recording. He followed the wires to a central console at the end of the hall, a single chair, a monitor, a keyboard, still warm. On the screen, a live feed from his own body cam. He turned, revolver up. Too late. A syringe plunged into his neck. "Easy now," a voice cooed. "You're home." He awoke, strapped to the chair. A man in a butcher's apron stood before him. No mask, no disguise. Bald head, surgical gloves, eyes like burnt coal. "I've been watching you for months, Detective Monroe. You're perfect. Methodical, quiet, alone, no children, no partner." He clicked a remote. Screens flickered on. A grid of lives, people in other cells. Some asleep, some crying, some gone still. "You see," the man continued, "I collect moments, breaking points. Everyone has one. I archive them, document them, like fine art." Monroe's wrists bled against the straps. He gritted his teeth. "You killed them," Monroe spat. "No," the man smiled. "They killed themselves. I just gave them the right conditions." Over days, maybe weeks, Monroe learned the truth. The curator was a former behavioral scientist, government-funded. He designed psychological break experiments before ethics caught up. When they shut his lab down, he kept going, privately, secretly, underground. He studied pain, loneliness, fear, with a godlike obsession, and now Monroe was his latest subject. But the curator had made a mistake. He underestimated a cop with nothing left to lose. Monroe feigned weakness, obedience, until the moment came. A shard of glass in his palm, a slashed artery on the guard, a stolen key card. He didn't run. He set the archive ablaze. Room by room, the fire spread like justice. Screams echoed. Smoke clawed at the walls. He found the console again and did one final act. Broadcasted every video file online, exposed it all, and then he climbed. They found Monroe wandering Mercy Street, bloodied and coughing soot. He spoke little. The media storm swallowed the story. Investigations, arrests, questions with no answers. The curator's real name was never released. Some said he died in the fire. Others say he moved his archive. But Monroe knew the truth. Some nights, even now, he hears the knock from below. Knock, knock, knock. And sometimes he knocks back. Detective Mara Delaney was used to strange cases, but this one was different. It came without a file, no photos, no formal complaint, just a voicemail, cracked and distorted.
Come to Ashridge, please. People are disappearing. It's happening again.
Ashridge was a ghost town long before it earned the title. A decaying mining settlement tucked deep into the Appalachians. It hadn't appeared in census data for over 20 years. The roads were barely navigable, the bridges covered in moss and old warning signs. Still, Mara went. Curiosity wasn't her weakness, it was her compass. She arrived just after dusk. A fog settled unnaturally low, clinging to the buildings like mold. Her GPS died miles ago. No cell signal, just the static hiss of old air. Ashridge wasn't empty. She saw lights in windows, shadows behind curtains, a boy watching from a porch. "Evening," she called. He vanished inside. Mara made her way to the old inn, the hollow hearth, still standing, its wooden sign swaying slightly in the breeze. Inside, the air was thick with dust and something else. Something like decay. The clerk didn't speak much, just handed her a key. Room 3. It was clean. Too clean, considering the town's condition. The bed was made with crisp white sheets. A pitcher of water sat untouched on the dresser. But the mirror was broken, shattered like someone had punched it. The pieces remained, set carefully in the drawer. As Mara settled in, she heard a knock on the window. Slow, rhythmic. 3 knocks. She looked out. No one. Just the fog. Thicker now, curling up like fingers. Mara found the sheriff's station still intact. The sign faded, but legible. Inside was Sheriff Boone. At least, that's what the stitched name tag said. He was in his 60s, gaunt, with eyes that didn't blink enough. "You're here about the disappearances," he said without her saying a word. "You reported them?" "No," he replied. "Town did. Not everyone here's dead yet, but they're leaving, not by choice." He slid a dusty ledger across the table. Names. Dozens of them. Last seen dates. Most recent, just 3 days ago. "What do you mean, not by choice?" Boone stared. "They walk into the woods and don't come back, or the mine. Sometimes they vanish from locked homes, doors still chained, food still warm. They leave behind not much." He pushed over a photo. It was a family, blurred, low quality. But Mara's stomach turned. The eyes had been scratched out. Who did this? "They all come back like that." Boone leaned forward. "Ashridge has a memory. It remembers who we are, and it remembers who we've lost." The mine was closed in the 1950s after a tunnel collapse, but the locals said it never truly shut. Boone gave her a map, hand-drawn. "Don't go past the lower chamber," he warned. "That's where it begins to lie." Mara descended with a lantern and recorder, finding the path surprisingly well kept. No rust on the rails, fresh footprints in the dirt. She reached a chamber far below, massive, dome-like, humming. In the center, a hole, perfectly round, black as void, as if space itself had ruptured. From within it came whispers, low, guttural sounds. She couldn't make out the words, but they pulled at her. She stepped closer, and the recorder shorted out. The lantern flickered. Then she heard her name. Mara. She ran, but her shadow stayed behind for just a second longer. As she climbed, the walls began to pulse, subtly breathing. The mine wasn't dead. It was dormant, watching. Back in town, things changed fast. People looked different. Eyes darkened, pupils too wide, teeth a little too sharp. Everyone smiled the same way, lips tight, too long. Sheriff Boone was gone, his office locked, blood under the door. Mara found his badge in the hallway, still warm. She checked the old church next. Inside she found a gathering, at least 40 townsfolk, standing in rows, all facing the altar. On the altar, a massive photograph, dozens of faces, all with eyes scratched out. The people began to hum, low, resonant, not quite a song, not quite human. Then they turned, in unison. Their eyes were empty sockets, bleeding darkness, mouths too wide to be real. Mara stumbled back, knocking over a candelabra. Flame erupted. Chaos. The townspeople screamed, not in pain, but in rage. She ran. The final night began with a quake. The ground split behind Town Hall. A black pit opened like a wound. From it came a mist that moved against the wind. People were drawn to it, eyes blank, smiling. Some screamed as they walked into the void. Others laughed. Mara tried to record it. Nothing worked. Batteries drained instantly. She grabbed a child trying to walk in. He whispered, "We belong to the Hollow now." She carried him away. He was gone in the morning, just dust where he slept. She dug up the mine map again, finding a symbol she'd missed. A spiral etched in ink over the deepest chamber. Next to it, a word. Threshold. Mara descended again, this time with intention. The spiral was a door, not physical, but mental. She crossed the threshold and felt reality warp. Time bled sideways. She saw Boone, her mother, herself as a child, all in flashes. At the center of the mine stood a monolith of ash. Faces writhed beneath its surface. The town had made a deal long ago. When the mines dried up, something else was found, and it asked for loyalty. It asked for sacrifice. Mara resisted. She lit the final flare and pressed it into the monolith. Screams filled the void. The mine shook. She climbed, faster than before, flame behind her. The town burned. Finally. Mara never left Ash Ridge, or maybe she did. The FBI found her a week later, wandering near the mountains, covered in soot and ash, eyes unfocused. No town was there. Satellite scans showed forest, no buildings, no roads, no mine, just her. In her hand, they found a Polaroid, a crowd of people, all smiling, all eyes scratched out. And in the distance, barely visible behind the trees, was the sign, "Welcome to Ash Ridge. Population 0." Detective Eliza Hart arrived at the Belgrave Hotel in the pouring rain. The call had come just after midnight. A woman had gone missing, an investigative journalist named Claire Delaney, who'd been staying in room 409. Her phone had stopped transmitting signals 6 hours ago. The Belgrave was one of those decaying Art Deco buildings trying desperately to preserve its grandeur. Gold-trimmed elevators, velvet carpets, and a front desk manned by someone who looked like he hadn't slept in weeks. The manager, a twitchy man named Arlen Cobb, met Eliza in the dimly lit lobby. "Room 409's cursed," he said before she even showed her badge. "We don't rent it anymore." She insisted. "Who else has stayed there?" Eliza asked. Arlen hesitated. 6. In the last 10 years. None of them checked out. The door to room 409 was ajar. Eliza pushed it open with her glove-covered hand. The room was cold, despite the radiator clanking loudly. The lights flickered. Everything smelled faintly of metal and damp cloth. The furniture was overturned. The mattress was slashed open. On the far wall, written in something that looked a lot like blood, were the words, "I see you. I see through you." The bathroom mirror was shattered, shards scattered like a puzzle never meant to be solved. A camera was set up on a tripod, facing the bed. No memory card. But Eliza found something behind the vent, an old cassette tape labeled Entry 1, The Eyes. Back at her office, Eliza had to dig out a tape player. The recording was static-filled, but the voice was unmistakable. Claire Delaney's. I think there's something behind the wallpaper. I can feel it watching me. Every time I close my eyes, I see faces, not human. They don't blink. They whisper. Room 409. It's older than the hotel. Older than the city. The walls remember. They hide the others. I think I saw him last night. The man in the bowler hat. Eliza paused the tape. Something about that detail, the man in the bowler hat, sent a chill up her spine. That exact figure had been described in a missing persons report from 2003. Same hotel, same room. Eliza returned to the Belgrave. Cobb was reluctant to let her in the basement, but she didn't ask twice. The service tunnels beneath the hotel were like arteries, winding, narrow, echoing with dripping water and the hum of unseen machinery. She found the door labeled Boiler 2. It was chained shut. She cut the lock. Inside was a cot, old food cans, a wall covered in Polaroids, faces of missing guests, eyes gouged out. At the center was a blurry photo. Room 409. A shadow standing over the bed, arms outstretched. She turned to leave and saw a man in a bowler hat standing at the end of the tunnel. He didn't move. He didn't blink. The history of the Belgrave went deeper than Eliza imagined. Newspaper archives revealed a series of murders back in the 1930s. 7 women, all found in their hotel rooms with their eyes missing. Room numbers varied until room 409 opened. The killer was never caught, but the murder stopped. The police reports were missing pages. One detective had scribbled in the margin, "He takes what sees." Eliza began having dreams, the same room, the same voice. Open your eyes. Open his. The mirror in her bedroom cracked without reason. Her reflection began moving seconds after she stopped. Claire's body was found 2 days later, not in the hotel, in Eliza's apartment. No signs of forced entry, no blood trail. Just her, sitting in Eliza's armchair, eyes removed with surgical precision. Still wearing her hotel robe, on the table, a second cassette tape. Entry 2. I let him in. Eliza listened. He lives through reflection. He moves through the mirrors. If you dream of him, it's already too late. She looked into her bathroom mirror and saw herself, smiling, with someone standing behind her. Eliza returned to room 409. This time, the door closed behind her. Inside, everything had changed. The walls were clean, the mattress whole. A record player spun softly. Claire sat on the edge of the bed. I didn't leave, she said. You can't, not once you look. Eliza stepped back. Claire stood. Her eyes were back, but wrong. Too black, too deep. She reached forward. Eliza screamed. Darkness. They found room 409 sealed shut, cemented from the inside. Eliza Hart was never seen again. But guests sometimes report hearing a voice through the walls, singing, asking you to look in the mirror, just for a second, just long enough to see. A week later, a janitor cleaning the storage closets found a third cassette tape tucked into a vent grill. It was labeled Entry 3, The Architect. The tape is shorter than the others, only a few minutes, but the voice isn't Claire's, it's a man's. He wasn't born, he was built. Every eye taken adds to him. Room 409 was never a room, it's a passage, and he's almost whole now. One more mirror, one more dreamer, that's all he needs. The tape ends with a quiet scratching sound, not static, something being carved. A maintenance worker reports finding strange symbols under the wallpaper in room 408, bleeding through the plaster. The Belgrave's occupancy dropped to near zero, except for one guest, who checked in under a false name. Security footage shows a man in a gray coat standing in front of room 409 for over 3 hours, never blinking. never turning, just standing. Eventually, he opened the door and walked inside. No one ever saw him leave, but every mirror in the hotel clouded over that night. And in the morning, a new message had appeared on the wall in 409. I see what you saw. I become what you fear. The room is now sealed, but some nights the lock clicks open and the door creaks just enough to let something through. It was a humid July night in Denton, Texas, when 32-year-old Rachel Sandler came home from her night shift at the diner. Her apartment was quiet, a modest one-bedroom on the second floor of a rundown complex near the freeway. She always made sure to lock the door behind her with the heavy deadbolt and chain, safety first. Rachel had moved here to escape her past, a stalking ex, a series of bad breakups, a court case she didn't want to talk about anymore. Texas was her fresh start. But safety, as she would soon learn, is often an illusion. That night, as she was brushing her teeth, she heard a noise, a soft click. Not the usual creak of the AC kicking in or the neighbors arguing upstairs. This was different, subtle, like metal on metal. She froze, toothbrush still in her mouth, and turned her head toward the front door. Another click. Rachel spat into the sink and tiptoed to the door. Her chain lock was still in place, but the deadbolt, it was no longer fully extended. She had locked it. She was sure of it. Goosebumps crawled up her spine. She didn't hear anyone outside. No footsteps, no movement, just silence. She watched the lock. Nothing else happened. She stayed up the rest of the night, baseball bat in hand, lights on. Morning came. Nothing. Maybe it was stress. Maybe the lock was old. She went to work, tired and anxious, but shrugged it off. Until the next night. Around 2 a.m., it happened again. The unmistakable sound of the deadbolt unlocking. She rushed to the door, chain still on, but the bolt, once again, was no longer locked. This time, she called the police. They came, looked around, found no signs of forced entry. They told her it was probably faulty hardware and advised her to replace the lock. They treated her like a paranoid woman living alone. She could see it in their eyes. Rachel bought a brand new deadbolt the next morning, a top-of-the-line smart lock with a keypad. She felt a little safer. 2 nights passed. Nothing. Then on the 3rd night, she woke to find the chain on the door was undone. She had no memory of unlocking it. She never left it off. Her heart pounded so hard she thought it would tear through her ribs. She called her friend Jay, the only person she trusted in town. Jay came over that morning. They tore the door apart. Jay even installed a security bar against the base of the door and set up a small hidden camera pointed directly at it. He stayed the night. Nothing happened. Jay left the next day, promising to check the footage later. That night, Rachel barely slept. She couldn't shake the feeling someone had been in her apartment, that this wasn't just paranoia. In the early morning, Jay called. Rachel, I think you need to come to my place. Right now. He sounded pale. She arrived 20 minutes later, trembling, clutching her overnight bag. Jay sat her down. He showed her the footage. At exactly 2:43 a.m., the door's keypad lit up. Someone entered a code, a 6-digit number. The lock clicked. The door opened. Then, a man stepped inside. Not breaking in, not forcing his way, just casually entering. He was tall, thin, dressed in black. He didn't look at the camera. He went straight to the kitchen, opened her fridge, took out a bottle of water, drank. Then he walked to her bedroom. Camera couldn't see further. Jay paused the video. There's more, he said. He showed her the second clip. At 3:17 a.m., the man left, quiet, calm, locked the door behind him, even reset the chain. Rachel's face drained of color. Her knees went weak. Police were called again. This time, they took it seriously. They reviewed the footage. An investigation was launched. The code entered on the keypad was traced. It had been changed remotely. The smart lock had been hacked. No logs, no alerts. Someone had bypassed it with advanced knowledge. 2 weeks later, a suspect was arrested. His name was Kyle Besser, age 45, a locksmith and former contractor who had worked for the apartment complex years prior. He kept copies of keys, installed locks, made backups, and more disturbingly, he had a list, dozens of names, mostly women, including Rachel's. In his storage unit, they found thousands of videos, footage of him entering apartments just like hers, watching people sleep, stealing small objects, replacing them. Memorabilia, he called them. Rachel moved away immediately, changed her name again, new city, new locks. But every night, she still checks the door. Every night, she still hears the click,